going on there, folks? Good afternoon. It is the Earthmaster back here on this Saturday, April 29th, 2023. About 2:20 p.m. here along the west coast in the state of California. And the latest earthquake shows a 3.3. In the red flag over here around the Turkey area. Also some movement as noted in the Southern California area with a 2.3 along with a significant earthquake swarm popping up there into the Southern California area. So I do want to bring up latest info on this. It did bring up the attention of Dr. Lucy Jones. Dr. Lucy Jones, right? I think a lot of people know who that is. Kind of like the face of the USGS, right? Tend to look to her expertise in times of earthquake activity. Well, she brings up a little note here. Quakes in the Imperial Valley. This was put out on Twitter about 7 hours ago on her Dr. Lucy Jones page. Earthquakes in the Imperial Valley. Like today's Heber? Not for sure how to pronounce that. Swarm often are swarms, many small and moderate events without one big main shock. They continue until they stop. No clear pattern. Usually for a day or two, sometimes a week. The largest magnitude we've seen is 5 plus, but usually smaller. So, no, this is like your standard basic spokesperson here announcement. Now, just down here from April 26, small quakes do not relieve stress to prevent big ones. So there's a little article that they put out as well. And I've always said that small earthquakes do not prevent any type of relieving on stress, so to speak. And this earthquake swarm now is continuing, and it has been for a little bit. I think this is about day number 2. Just today alone, 77 earthquakes on the map here, just north of Mexicali and just north of the border. And I do want to bring up the last 7 days because technically we're going to include all the magnitudes here in this little swarm, which is now over 100 earthquakes in the vicinity of the El Centro area. 114 earthquakes, basically today and yesterday. But past the 24-hour map. So, largest magnitude, she did mention a 5, but I'm not seeing any 5 out there. Not for sure. Kind of weird. She said there was a 5 plus in here. I don't see it. I see a 4.1. But either way, this is a pretty significant swarm, folks. And it's been a while since we've seen any type of swarming like this, specifically in this area. I think the last earthquake swarm was a little bit further north of El Centro, south of the Brawley area. And it's been a while. I'm wanting to say well over a year or so. But either way, what concerns me the most is the close proximity here to the plate boundary, the San Andreas Fault, right? It looks like it is striking out on the San Jacinto Fault zone. It's a pretty lengthy fault that runs from, let's see where that was at here. I do have a map. I have a couple different maps keyed up here. Maybe this is it. Okay, here's a little bit better map of the the area, but without the earthquake activity added on. You got the Imperial Fault, which extends here south of the border, and there is the San Jacinto Fault zone. Looks like, fault name San Jacinto Fault. Superstition Hills earthquake. Not for sure exactly when that was. But I was hoping to see if there was any other fault systems down here that maybe that it's associated on, because it looks like it's just within this area right here where there is no faults listed up here on the map. Let me show you guys again here. They kind of have this going right here for the San Jacinto Fault zone, and then it just kind of stops here. We don't see any other faults listed south of El Centro area. So it's a little odd. I'm sure there's obviously some faults out here, but again, close proximity here to the San Andreas Fault is what has me, just a little concerned out there, folks. Any type of swarming around a major overdue overdue. I'll add that because it is overdue. The southern section here of the San Andreas Fault is well overdue in terms of your typical time frame intervals of earthquakes. And it's awfully quiet, not even a peep or a squeak on it right now, but literally within about 30 miles here south of the tip, so to speak, is a pretty good swarm. So the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault stops here according to the typical type of fault system out here, and then it gets renamed to the Brawley seismic zone, which is pretty much an extensional fault boundary, a plate boundary out here, and then it extends into the Imperial Fault. But realistically, though, I would say that's the plate boundary, right? So it's very close to the North American and the Pacific plate boundary. Pacific plate on the west, of course, North American plate over here to the east, and it's very active, folks. Very, very active. So that's kind of why I'm looking at this a little bit more in detail. I do want to pull back up the and by the way, there's not a lot of coverage on this earthquake swarm at all. You do an earthquake swarm search in Google, and there's just not a whole lot, unless my videos pop up. I'm again surprised that Dr. Lucy Jones even mentioned it, but kept to a basic statement, that doesn't really say what's causing it or if there's any potential for a big one. They just state that we obviously know what earthquake swarms are. We don't need the definition of it. We want to know what's causing it. But apparently they continue until they stop. It's like the sun goes down when it goes down. When it's right, it's right. When it's left, it's left. Okay. Tell us something we don't know. Either way, yeah. Let me pull up the earthquake catalog book here from the USGS. I want to check out, again, we're going to go 5.5 and above. I want to see when our last major quake was down here, the Superstition Hills earthquake. Excuse me. Just got out of the pool here. Kind of hot again. It's about 92.6 here in the backyard. Northern California, that is. So let's check it out. See what's going on out here across this specific area. I'm going to include a little bit more up north as well. I want to cover this whole area and see what we have. Oh, it looks like there may be a few coming up here. Loading a little slow, so hopefully it will go through. We'll check back on that in a sec. Oh, there we go. Well, there it is. Okay. It was showing the earthquakes, but not on the map. But now they are. So it looks as though, specifically in that area where we're seeing a swarm, there's nothing seismically between Mexicali and the El Centro area. Let me get rid of some of these windows, folks. I know it's... There we go. On the Imperial Fault, yes, there has been. There was 2 earthquakes here. Looks like a 6.4 back in 1979. A little bit further north near El Centro was a 5.5 back in 1915. But this area looks like it's lacking some movement here. That seismic gap, so to speak, right where we're seeing that earthquake swarm, right about in this spot right here. But there has been definitely historically some larger quakes. 1892, Laguna M7.3 earthquake. That's a pretty big one. See up north here, 6.6, 1942, 6.6, 1987, 6.2, 1987, and a couple other smaller quakes here as well. But we're well over the 100-year mark for some of these quakes. I'm getting close to it on others, but really nothing recent that I can see. We all know that this area is long overdue for the big one, and that's why these little swarms are, very important to study and figure out what is causing it. Where's the pressure going to? Is this, the general plate movement in the area? Are we going to look at a migration of pressure transferring up here to the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault? And a lot of people say, well, it's good to have a whole bunch of little ones instead of one big one. But Dr. Lucy Jones said that little quakes do not relieve stress on the fault systems there for to prevent bigger quakes. It just doesn't happen, and it makes sense. It doesn't happen. So this is we'll kind of watch for migration here. Right now, it's just centered in between El Centro and the Mexicali area. Doesn't look like there's any migration with that earthquake activity. Prior to this, we did have some movement up here in the Salton Sea area, very close to the named San Andreas Fault up here, the southern branch. So we'll watch and see if this kind of migrates any closer to the area. Either way, I still think with this movement very close, that an earthquake watch is definitely warranted here in the area. That's why I have that on the earthquake live 3D stream due to the elevated activity out here. It's definitely noticeable. Far as magnitudes go, again, we had that 4.1. Let's see, go back here. 4.1, it looks like on the 29th, so yesterday, but beyond the 24-hour time frame. And then quite a few threes in there and twos as well. So some of these magnitudes are getting bigger as the time goes by. So, we've seen swarms before, a big one, and we've seen earthquake swarms out here with no big earthquake. And specifically within this area, the Salton Sea area, the Brawley Seismic Zone, Imperial Fault. So, but who's going to say, who's to say that one of these swarms ain't going to be the one that's going to knock on the door here on the sleeping giant and say, hey, wake up, it's time to party. You just never know. This could be the swarm that wakes up the sleeping giant down south here. There is, let's see where that's at. Here is a pretty cool site from the Southern California Seismic Network, the SCSN site. That has a whole bunch of information here on the earthquake activity in general in California. Let me see what this article says here. Looks like they got a YouTube video put out. 4.1, 21 aftershocks, right? But, when you're in a series of earthquakes in a swarm, which one's the aftershock and which one's the foreshock? I would consider all these foreshocks if there were a big one to kick up. So, I don't like them using one of the bigger quakes in the mix and then saying that all the other ones are aftershocks, because that's not really what's going on. More aftershocks may be expected in the next few days. This 4.1 happened like yesterday in the middle of the swarm, not prior to the swarm. It's not like we had a 4.1 and then we have all this earthquake activity. But no, these magnitudes are getting bigger. Think about it. Possible foreshocks. There were 61 events during the 3 days prior to the earthquake. There, I'm glad they mentioned that. See, I'm just reading this for the first time here, along with you guys. So, 61 earthquakes during the 3 days prior to the 4.1, within about 10-kilometer radius. And most of those have been within that area. The largest was a 3.2 2 days ago. Since the records began back in 1932, hopefully you guys can see that here. Since records began back in 1932, we've had 43 events of M4 or greater within 10 kilometers of today's events. The largest historic event was a 6.4 back in 1979. The most recent historic event was an M4.0 back on the 22nd of May 2012. The CFM Fault Association's most likely Dixieland Fault. Are we... Dixieland Fault. So that is the fault that we're missing off of the map, right? If that's what they're noting here, the Dixieland Fault should be listed up here on the map, because I definitely don't see it up here. And This is the San Jacinto Fault Zone. Dixieland Fault is not up here. So I'm really surprised it's not on some of these fault systems, these maps that the USGS uses here. So that's a rather interesting. Let's see. Let's bring this up here. I'm kind of curious about it. I've never actually heard of it. I'm going to do a little look into it here in just a second. But they're stating that 89% accuracy that it's on the Dixieland Fault, with nearby fault systems as the San Jacinto Fault Zone, Superstition Hills section, Brawley Seismic Zone, and the Imperial Fault. So earthquakes can occur both near and or on major known faults, and in places where no clear fault zones are known. Of course, right? California is riddled with a whole bunch of faults all over the place. So let's check out that fault system here real quick. Let me go over here real quick. It's called the Dixieland Fault. Let me see if they have any information about it, right? Not, they don't even have, not even one. And this is coming from the folks that are at the Southern California Earthquake Data Center. Nothing on the Dixieland Fault. So we'll have to check that out here. Dixieland Fault, California, right? California. Let's see what we have. Whole bunch of articles, but not a whole lot of information out here. I'm trying to figure out where it could be at. I mean, it's got to be. Look at that. There's not even a lot listed up here on the imagery. I'm going to have to look into this a little bit longer later on. It does have some information on there, but we'll check on that a little bit later. So I wanted to bring up, this is a map here of a seismograph Webby quarters that have been recorded, obviously, and the most closest one to this earthquake swarm looks like it's going to be this station right here, El Centro, right up here. We're going to check out just today's recent activity, and it still looks pretty active. It doesn't look like it's specifically right at the epicenter area because these are kind of broad. Most of the time when you're on top of the epicenter area of the earthquake swarm, it'll be really spiky. It'll look more well defined. So let me see here. Let's see if it maybe, I don't know, that's getting a ways off here now with this one. CIDRA. That's going to be up here. Desert Research Extended Center. Check out this map. This one looks about the same. Maybe a little bit closer to the activity, but still looks a little off. Either way, every one of these blips here, these little, blips on the graph are indeed earthquakes, with the bigger ones being up here, with that black signal being one of the more prominent ones. But there's still quite a bit of earthquake activity occurring, and as you can see, this is just since about what is it, 1400. Yeah, this doesn't even cover all of the last 24 hours here. So there's still a lot of activity kicking up there, folks. Check out down here, SGL. Signal Mountain. This one's only going to show some more of the stronger quakes. Looks like it's centered further away from the epicenter activity. But either way, I'm going to cover this here. I'm going to look into this a little bit more. Look at this. Look how many's popping up here in the last hour. Last one was 1436. So just about 4 minutes ago. 2.4. So 3.7. And again, that 4.1 was from yesterday, right here. 10 kilometers deep. And another thing that makes me think that there's something bigger about ready to happen is the inconsistencies of these, the depth of these earthquakes. They're all over the place. Some are shallow, some are deep. That's obviously some movement going on with this fault system called the what is it again? The Dixieland. I was going to say Disneyland, but the Dixieland fault there. I'll look into that a little bit more and see if I can find out some information. Unless someone else knows out here, please feel free to post it in the chat. I've actually never heard of that fault system. Obviously the San Jacinto fault, but I'm guessing right about here south into the Mexicali area is where the Dixieland fault's going to be. Maybe it's just a different name for an extended area of the San Jacinto fault zone. I'll look into it a little bit more, like I say, throughout the afternoon time period. But that's still some activity ramping up here, folks. Remember the depth of these earthquakes all over the place. Let's see what we got for. Let's see, the largest was at 10 kilometers. Some of these are really shallow as well. They extend almost up to the surface. But 3, 7, 9, 6 kilometers. There's one. See, that leads me to believe that there's definitely something about ready to kick up out here. More so than what we're seeing. It's a lot of activity. So my job is to figure out what's causing it, where the potential migration could go, or if it's just going to be centered around here with a much larger quake. And as we've seen here on the map, it's been a while, right? It's really been a while if you look at even all the general activity here on other fault systems nearby. But far as the Dixieland fault, which is probably here somewhere, I wish they would show it, but what are they, like 85% certain that it's on that fault system? I don't know where their little article went to, but yeah, right here. They're looks like they're pretty certain, 89% certain that it occurred most likely on the Dixieland fault. Of course, says a horse. So, let me get back to the most recent map here and look a little bit further. Yeah, newest first is good. What do we got for worldwide activity? A little bit of movement down into New Zealand again. That's still kicking up down there. We're going to cover that a little bit more into detail, but right now just kind of wanted to focus on the Southern California area because that is that's a lot of activity here, folks, and that's not even all of them on the Earthquake 3D globe. There's one up here on the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault near Pure Blossom 1.1. Yeah. Alright guys, I'm going to jump off here and do a little bit of digging around, see if I can find out a little bit more information on this specific fault zone down here and what's out there. Let me look at the satellite view here real quick. A whole bunch of farmland, it looks like. Goodness, I didn't realize that was such a big populated area right there. That's massive. But the swarm is occurring, it looks like, around this general area. Not for sure what that is. It doesn't really say out here, but it's a rather interesting little feature out here. It does look like there's some pumping operations out there. You guys see that? These look like what you would see for oil pumping operations. I don't know if there's natural gas or what's going on out there, but those are the pumps. Looks like. I'm kind of curious about something here now. I want to bring up this location. Is it gonna let me? Let's see, where's my Google Earth at? I have no idea. Hold on a second here, folks. Stand by for just a second while I pull this up. Google Earth. Okay. What I want to do is pop this into the Google Earth directory. I haven't opened this in a while, so I don't even know if it's going to work. I forgot I still have a couple overlays I need to remove because it does slow this down pretty drastically, and it shouldn't. But for whatever reason, Google Earth has some issues with a bunch of extra overlays involved. But that, I'm telling you, that really looks like some oil pumping operations out here, something. And this right here looks like maybe it looks similar to what we've seen out there in western Texas, a solar farm or something. Some big outfit going on out here into the into this region. If anybody's out there that knows this area, chime in, let me know. But these kind of look like some type of solar farms. That's a lot of them. Is that what they are? Either way, that's kind of where that activity is occurring. Okay, let me go back over here and enter this info in real quick. Just want to look at a little bit more closer deal. Let's see what's going on here. Google Earth here can get a little bit closer than say, you know, the web page. There's a little bit better view, I would say. Looks like huge fans. I'm not for sure what this place is. What's that called? Ormat, Nevada? Some type of power facility is what I'm guessing. But yeah, look at these. Oh, yeah, those are definitely some type of oil pumping operations out there. And there's numerous ones out here. I'm not saying that's what's causing the earthquake activity, but you know, these things, they take advantage of the fault systems out there in order to run the operations. Yeah, that's another one there. Either way, I think we got a hot spot of activity out here with earthquake movement. There's a border down here. Yeah, it just looks like there's a bunch of these things out here, specifically right where the earthquake activity is. So I will dig into that a little bit more and have a little bit better update tonight. But I just want to point out here the importance of these swarms here. It looks like we're getting a little bit further swarming up north here along this area of the San Jacinto fault zone. So if it's not associated on the San Jacinto fault zone, then you know, say it's on the Dixieland fault, then what's all this other activity occurring up here? I think regionally, this whole area of Southern California is under the quite a bit of pressure out here. Even up here along the Garlock fault showing some elevated activity. See that? So heads up, Southern California today. I'm not even joking. It's looking very active. And this all could be pointing to something bigger. It's better to be safe than sorry. Some of that activity is showing up, it looks like, here on the Barrett station. That's probably about the closest station that I have pulled up. But it doesn't look like this station's right at the epicenter, because some of these earthquakes looks like they're far away. But if there's an earthquake, it's definitely going to show up on the Barrett station. Again, that's centered over here to the north west. It may be picking up this other swarm that's coming in. Either way, folks, just be on guard, stay safe. I do have an earthquake watch listed up here specifically because of this elevated activity, and it's been a while since we've seen this type of movement down into the Southern California area. Right now, I only have about 1.7 and above in the magnitude. Look at that, 2.3 just coming in right now. So, goodness. Best to be prepared, not scared, but best be prepared, have an earthquake plan. A good reminder of the potential hazard down there in Southern California. This may blow over and do nothing, or this may lead into something bigger. Earthquake swarms around a major wound-up plate boundary that's long overdue for earthquake activity is a little concerning, right? I would say so. I mean, to ignore that fact is to be ignorant. So definitely be on guard out there today, folks. We'll catch you guys back here a little bit later tonight, and we'll see if we can find out some more information on the Dixieland fault. We'll catch you guys back here later.